All right. Well, I just having a little fun here. You know, as I have said before, it's kind of lonely out here in your home office, looking out into the woods, talking to people from all over the world, and so it's really nice to hear the connection with you all. So I really appreciate you coming on. Still got a bit of a background noise here, but it might be from somebody. If there's anyone on the moderator line, just make sure there's no background noise or anything like that. So let's get the ball rolling here. Thank you all for joining us today. Getting Started Workshop. Yes, that's Terry and I. Last convention coming up here now. Slides are a little slow this morning, and this is still one of my favorite pictures because this is what I look like today. In fact, I pretty well match. Once again, got that red shirt on, got the slippers, the jogging pants, coffee sitting over here. That's what I look like when I'm working. And I think everybody should look like that when they're working. You know, and you can see our beautiful environment here. I mean, we just love to stay at home and work the phones. And yes, we have built this huge network, mostly all from the home in our country, on 5 acres out here in the woods. So if we can do it from nowhere land out in the boondocks, so can you. First of all, surprise guest. Got this email from Trish yesterday or so. And just really had an impulse, read it to Terry, and we were just so touched by this story that we wanted to have her jump on at the beginning of the call. I think she's hiding out in her car from all of her beautiful children, and just have her tell this story that came about. But Trish, are you there?
I'm here, Art.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I am hiding out. I'm parked in a grocery store parking lot.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Trish. And for those of you that have never heard of your name before, where are you from, and what's got you? What was it that got you involved in Zango?
I'm from Alberta, Canada, and I got into Zango through the Promise Co-op.
Right.
So yeah, did you want me to go into that a little more?
Yeah, why don't you tell a little bit of your story to give some context here for folks, because we haven't been able to have you on before, and you've got quite a story.
Okay. Well, I saw an ad actually in a Christian women's magazine. It said, homeschool mom gets a big raise. And I read about how a homeschool mom had been able to really change their family's life and finances through this three-step plan that they were talking about in the ad. So I called and I left my information. And I did that right after my son, we had just gotten home from a very lengthy hospital stay. We'd almost lost our son to kidney failure, and we were just coming home faced with learning how to do dialysis. He was not going to be on dialysis until we could build up to having everyone healthy enough to handle a kidney transplant. And so I was at a very much a crisis point in my life, but I called about this knowing that we were going to need some financial help. At that point, I didn't know if we were going to have to pay for all of his meds and all this stuff. It was just very scary. So who called me back? But a wonderful lady who has become one of my best friends, Mary Lou Furby. And just as, you know, coincidence would have it or God would have it, her day job is as a dialysis social worker.
Wow.
And so she knew exactly what we were facing. And she was just such a blessing. And she just said to me, I think you're going to want to know that this company gives 7% of all the sales to children's charities. Well, I had just lived at Ronald McDonald for 4 weeks at Ronald McDonald House, which is a large children's charity here.
Right.
So she pretty much had me at those words. But then she went on to say that they give a portion of that, of their charity giving, goes to the Children's Organ Transplant Fund. Well, at that point, I was done. I got off the phone and I said to my husband, I don't know what this is, but I know that we're supposed to do it.
Wow.
And things have just grown from there. It's been incredible for me.
Yeah, well, you've got this hot leg, the Deb Pazzo group that is just doing incredible things, and you've watched this business, and I know, and for part of the time with dealing with your son and everything, that you know, you couldn't really put a lot of attention onto your business for several months there, and yet because of the way you got the ball rolling, the business kept growing without you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just kept growing. It was amazing and awesome, and the best thing is too, like, Deb is my aunt, and I'm just so tickled that not only has this blessed them financially and stuff, but it was so awesome to hear right from the very beginning what a powerful impact this had on her life as far as her pain issues and stuff. Like,
Right.
I'm just so glad to be a part of that in some small way, and that's much like the email that I sent you the other day.
Yeah, well, this is a pretty amazing story, and I just couldn't resist but have you come on and tell it. So basically, you obviously approached somebody, and why don't you just go in and tell the story, and then and then we'll just kind of summarize the follow-up email that you just got from this lady.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I had sent out basically a catch-up letter telling everyone how my son Tristan's doing and how, how life is going out here. And so I sent them to a lot of my homeschooling friends from home. We're originally from Goderich, Ontario. And so I included my friend Claire in this, and I hoped that she would take a look at it, but I really didn't know. But I sent her this out anyway, and with this catch-up letter, I added some Zango information, and I told them Zango has become just part of our story because it helped us get through transplant and everything. So whenever I'm catching someone up on how our family's doing, Zango is a big part of that. So I included a CD in there as well for Claire. And then we connected again on the phone, and sure enough, she was very interested in it because the CD talked about how the Zango had helped other people who have certain symptoms that sometimes go along with autism. She has two boys who have autism, and one is 21, and the other, I think, is somewhere around 12. And I could just really relate with Claire in a whole new way after going through the last couple of years that we have with my son. She talked about having 21 years of, health challenges and difficulties with her kids, and I just went, oh my goodness, But she decided to start them on the juice, and she didn't see instant results. She saw pretty much nothing until about 3 weeks in. They were sitting in the kitchen, and her husband was going to take two of her other kids who don't have autism to the movies, and the oldest one looked at him and said, I want to go to the movies. And they all just about, they were totally shocked because up until this point, he had just mainly said one-word answers. He was not very verbal. So this was, completely out of the blue and completely surprised them. And then as time went on, they began to realize that they were sleeping longer hours at a time. For all this time, all 21 years, they've been just sleeping about 2 hours at a time because they just were woken up, constantly through the night. And since, after about a month in or 3 weeks in, they started noticing that they were sleeping better. There was less behavioral issues through the day, and they were just feeling better. All the while, they had never told the boys that this juice might help them. They had just added it to their day as part of their diet. Like, this is just what we do. But Claire was still...
Well, she tells the story about Ben, running out of juice, right?
Right. She had started to get quite excited and share it with people. And they, as we all know, people can sometimes not want to see things the way that we do. And they started to say, well, maybe it's just because they're outside more, or maybe it's the weather or whatever. So when she ran out of juice, she didn't rush to order it again for her next shipment to come in. And she noticed right away that they started regressing and started going back to not being able to sleep well, a lot more behavioral issues, all that type of thing. And then as soon as she just wrote me the other day with the email that I shared with you, she just said that they are right back to where they were before on the juice. And Kevin, her oldest, again said the other day, I want to go grocery shopping tomorrow morning. And then she took him grocery shopping, and she noticed a huge reduction in, like, she said he used to have to touch things 3 times before he would pick them up. And yet, through the whole grocery shopping trip, he was asking for things, and she would say, sure, go pick it up, and he just picked it up normally. He was able to walk through the store without doing a lot of self-stimulus noises. He was able to walk normally, whereas before he would have had to do 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 1 to the side, and then make progress. So I just remember the words in her email. She said he was smiling as though he almost knew how normal he was behaving. And it's...
Yeah, I'd like to read the last thing, you know, and if you're out there listening to this and you're wondering how, you know, why you're doing this business and why are we involved in this juice, you know, and what can happen, she says, thanks you so much for thinking of us for this wonderful product, Trish. You and yours are on my permanent prayer of Thanksgiving list. I hope someday I can repay you for what you've done for my family. You cannot know what this means to me. I'm so grateful. Even this is as good as it gets for my boys. I am incredibly happy with the results. Although I think now that maybe, just maybe, better things will still come. I'm not praying for complete normalcy, but all improvements will be so welcome and so appreciated. Love and prayers and many, many thanks, Claire.
Wow.
I just feel so blessed to be a part of this.
Well, thanks, Trish. Before we all get teary-eyed here, thanks for coming on and sharing that beautiful story. Yeah. Imagine having a child for 21 years and suddenly watching it improve, you know, and just seeing it, you know, and any improvements are just a delight and welcome. So, Trish, I really appreciate you. You know, you've changed a lot of lives, you know. I mean, you're a 5K up there in Alberta. You have lots of volume, but think about all the people that have gotten benefits and are feeling better and having better lives because of your decision, you know, to make this a business and to share with other people. So thank you for coming on, Trish. I know you got to get out of the car.
Okay. Thanks,
you, Trish. Appreciate you.
Terry, any comments on that one?
Well, you know, I just have to say, Art and I read this email, and, you know, this is what Zango does for you. This is what that great juice does for you. And I think sometimes, you know, we've been with the company a long time, and we forget the power of this juice. We forget the power of picking up that phone and sharing it with people. That this is what it's all about, you guys. It's about changing people's lives. It's about touching people's hearts. You know, it's not about the money. Art and I have always said that. It's about helping people. And so very powerful for that lady to be able to pick up that phone and have the courage to do that. It takes courage to pick up the phone, but you have to remember the end result is helping people.
Yeah, and just so you understand, you know, I mean, how is something like that possible? One of the great things about the mangosteen is we can explain why these things happen. A lot of products are out there, and there's no real logical explanation, but silent inflammation, once again, inflammation, now they are studying, and they're thinking that there's an inflammation factor involved in autism, along with all these other possible problems out there that people could have. And so if you can do something to reduce inflammation, who knows what can happen in the body. And so that's really what we're talking about here, reduction of inflammation. And if you look up autism and inflammation, you can see some links on there on various websites. Okay, so thanks a lot for that, Trish, and coming on here. And we'll see if we can turn on our business heads here and bring on Cass. 20K from the UK. Are you there, Cass?
I am, yes. Art, hello.
Wasn't that an amazing story?
That was absolutely amazing. And I wanted just to add something to that, you know, when she's talking about OCD, I've actually never told anybody this, or I haven't ever said this to you know, publicly. But one of the things that really motivated me on the business side of this was because my middle son he had OCD. He developed it when he was about 16 years old, maybe 15, and it was very, very severe and extremely, extremely frightening. It got to the point where he couldn't even walk through a door without well, he couldn't leave the room. He couldn't walk through a door anymore. He would just stand in the entrance of a door, and he would walk from one foot to the other. And then if he had to get up and out of a chair or something, he'd go back and tap it and tap it and tap it. And it was very, very scary. And it was at that particular time in my life when Zango came into our lives. And you know, listening to Trish now, you know, it makes me realize how much, you know, because I thought, well, you know, he's never really going to be able to do anything for himself. You know, he's never going to be able to hold down a job or anything. And so, you know, I'm going to have to do something, you know, put something in place for him. And this was a very great concern for me. And now he functions completely normally. And you know, and I realize that from listening to Trish, you know, it's funny how, you know, you think about all these things and you hear about, you know, it helped my back and it did all these other things, but what it really did is it made it possible for him probably to be able to live a completely normal life now. And I always say to him, you know, it's amazing you've overcome this. You know, you've overcome this incredibly debilitating condition, which is just so horrible, and some people never ever overcome it. And I've just realized, listening to Trish, it's got to be the Zango.
Wow. You know, well, that's been one of our challenges all along in getting people on the juices. They don't really know sometimes why things are happening, you know, what's really going on. I mean, we're always looking for visible manifestations of the miracle of a product like this, but there's lots of things that we might not notice.
That's right. That's right. That's really really moved me.
Well, Cass, let's get into the training now. Shift gears a little bit here. I'm going to take people on a very quick, short tour, because this is basically designed for new people that are getting started. I want to make sure that you understand how our basic system here works. That's becomingapremier.com, okay? And that's our team training site. And this is where new members join our email list right here. And when you get somebody interested in the business, you want them to be a part of our email list, because that's the only way they're going to get emails from us on all of these great calls, right? And then if you log into the back office there, now, one thing I wanted to point out, and this is a point of confusion we're going to have to try to fix up here. There's the email list is separate from registering here. This is a separate transaction here. This is registering as a member, does not put you in our email list, or does not put anyone in the email list. We don't keep a database on these people as part of our email list. This is the only way that you can be a part of our email list. When you register and log in, then you come to the back office, and this is what it looks like. Lots of great links there, and we have a tab here called the Getting Started tab. And so all of you should have been through this Getting Started tab here, and we have a Getting Started webinar, which I recommend that everybody here should watch that Getting Started webinar. Now, you know, it's going to tell you how to get to 5K in 90 days, and most people can't make it that fast, so don't be worried about being intimidated by doing 100 presentations in 90 days. It will still lay out the foundation of how you build this business. We also have a great webinar on the power and the synergy of the three markets, because this is one of the major questions that we get, Cass, and I think we're going to start right in here with the power of the three markets, because there's three basic ways that you can find people here, and that is the number one question that everybody's got: where am I going to find people to talk to? And so I have identified three basic markets, and I don't know anyone else that really teaches it like this anywhere in Zango, or in fact in any other place. The three markets are the warm market, that's defined as people that you know, and that will break into people that have health concerns, and or people that are looking for income streams. The second market is the cold market, and that's people that you don't know, so naturally that requires some kind of advertising. Trish came in from some sort of advertising. And so that is the cold market. The third market is what I call the meat market, the people that you meet every single day. And it's my suggestion that you all learn to master those three markets. And I'm using that word explicitly here. It may take you many years to master all three of those markets, but that is your task. And so we're giving you some advanced ideas here. And Cass, I know you are doing really well in these markets. And so why don't you talk a little bit about some of the different ways of finding people, like we discussed yesterday, different ways of opening conversations to find people to talk to.
Okay, yes. Well, one of the things that I wanted to say here is that, it's important to think that everybody is different, and, people have to do what they feel most comfortable with, because, I think you would agree with me on that. But of course, as you said, this is a skills business, and we can learn the skills as well. And the skills are learned by coming on the conference calls, by doing the training, and by listening, and by being a professional student of your business. But when it comes to approaching people in what we call the meeting market, the people who we meet. Not everybody has a very large family or a very large acquaintance. Maybe they've moved to another part of the world, or, they don't know anybody there. So, if you open any window, you're going to see people. And what you always have to think, and this is the first part of it, is that, remember stories like Trish's story. Trish's story was about something that has affected somebody very, very deeply and very powerfully. And this is something that you always want to bear in mind, is that when you go out to talk to somebody, no matter which way you're going to go and talk to that person, if it's going to be through the cold market, the meat market, or the warm market, you're going to be offering them the greatest gift that you can possibly give them. And it's up to them whether or not they decide that they want to have that gift, that they want to accept that gift. But you have to offer it, because if you know these things, you have to share them, because not to share them would be, it wouldn't be right, would it? Knowing that there's people out there who can get this much of a benefit. So you start off with the certainty that you're going out to help somebody. And then, what I do is very simply, one of the ways that it's always different, because it depends on where you're meeting people.
Right.
But a very, very good opening question is simply, how are you doing? That is always, you can smile. Of course, you want to always approach somebody with a good attitude, and you're ready to do something for them, So if you have that already in your heart, and you just say to them, how are you doing? And you mean it. There's not an awful lot of people who get asked that question. And, there they will say, well, I'm fine, or, I'm okay, or whatever. And then depending on what the situation is, let's say, for example, you can continue the conversation and say, oh, well, if they might say, oh, well, it's not so good today, then, you may think, well, you may ask them, well, what's wrong, or what's happened, or if you are in a situation where I've just met somebody outside of their workspace, you can say to them, you can say, how are you doing? They talk and listen. It's very, very important to listen to them. And then you can say to them, like, something like, well, what do you do for a living? Because that, again, is a subject that people feel comfortable talking about.
Cass, if you distill this down, and I know you're really great at this, it's about developing relationships first,
Yeah, it's about
getting into conversations with people.
Yeah.
And when I have people that say, I've been presenting Zango, or I've been showing Zango to lots of different people. I have a question come in right now, to be honest with you, Cass. I have made a number of presentations. In other words, I have presented this in some fashion. We're going to get into some of the specifics of that. Can't seem to get that word out. But, she's saying I'm not getting any results back. And I would say, in other words, my system is not working. I'm presenting to people, and they're not responding the way that I would like. It basically means that you haven't gotten into the other person's needs and the other person's why, and why would they be interested in this, and what's in it for them. And you can only find that out by asking questions, right?
And listening.
And listening, yeah. That's the other side of it, right?
You have to build a rapport with the person, and because if you start presenting to somebody before they've given you permission to present, you're on a losing battle.
Yeah, and that's why, my basic strategy here is to pique somebody's interest.
That's right.
Tell them a little bit about what is going on here and what's in it for them, and approach people based on what's in it for them, and then tell my own little story of how I've benefited from it. And then as soon as I have, and this might only take a minute or two, then I love to ask that question, would you like to get some information on it? Because that is the key point right there. What Cass just said, if you try to push information on people that have not asked for it, they will put the walls up and they will shut down on you. So you've got to ask their permission. You've got to pique their interest. Would you like to get some information on it? And once they agree, then I will tell you this, the energy dynamics change.
That's right. Well, if you ask them questions and also, you show enthusiasm. So if somebody likes their work or whatever, and you say to them, wow, that's great that you like your work, and so what do you like to do in your free time, and you get them talking about their free time, and, then you've got something, what their interests are, and then you've got a way that you can segue into talking about it. Like, for example, you could say, I wonder if you ever thought about finding a way to help you out of that situation if it's somebody who's worried about, for example, now with the economy, the topic is going to be about the state of the economy.
Right.
So you sound really, you can say to somebody, well, you sound really concerned about this. Why is that? And then they can say, well, there's the redundancies, and wow, I wonder if you ever thought about finding a way to help you out of that situation, And then, or you could just simply say, wow, you need to know what we're doing, what I've been doing. We found a solution for times like these. I mean, I've got no idea if this will be of interest to you. And if by then they haven't said, what is it, then really, move on, because they're not going to be very interested in talking to you, are they?
The other thing that you suggested the other day, too, Cass, is another good way to approach people is kind of with, there's different ways, but, who do you know? And not approaching people directly.
Yes, I was going to talk about the third-party approach, because, again, there's so many different ways of approaching people. So the other way of doing it is, instead of involving your prospect directly, you can ask them for their help, because most people like to be, if you ask somebody for their help, they will generally, almost always, offer their help, because people like to be helpful. I mean, there's not a lot of really nasty people in the world, and you're not going to be wanting to talk to those. You do have to aim for people who have got the right kind of attitude. You don't want to be approaching somebody who, even when you smile and talk to them or say hello to them, they grunt at you or something. I mean, that's not going to be somebody who's ever going to be approachable. They don't have the right attitude.
Yeah, you're looking for the right kind of people. And in fact, I haven't said this much, but I was telling a guy this week, Cass, I have not contacted everybody in my warm market. There's people in my warm market I don't want to work with.
That's right.
And I don't feel like they would ever do anything to this, so why beat your head against a dead horse,
That's right. That's absolutely right. And another, when you're asking, when you're asking for somebody's assistance in something, you can just say to them something like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm a new business owner. I'm looking for people who can help me to promote my business.
Yeah.
Do you know of any, venues around here? You could just sort of do it like that, or do you know where I might be able to do this? Because then, of course, they're going to be wanting to know what it is. You can also say, I'm looking for people with good people skills to help me promote my product. Do you know anybody around here who could do that? Or you're asking them for help.
Well, yeah, one thing that comes to mind right away here, and we're just throwing things out at you on purpose if you're listening to this, and there's always a certain amount of confusion in any kind of a situation where there's multiple choices, right? And so one of the things that we believe is that there's certain principles that apply here, and we try to teach principles. We don't teach techniques. Techniques are things that you memorize. Techniques are other people's systems that you're trying to adopt and make your own, but they may not be your own. And so we're more of a heart-based group here, where we want to teach you how to find your own path and your own way to build this business so that it comes from your heart and not your head, right? Which means that we're going to teach principles, and the difference is I'm not going to tell you exactly what tools to use, but I'm going to tell you to let the tools do the talking, right? We talked about this example yesterday, Cass. So in other words, tools are important in your business, online and offline tools. You should be having tools in your business, but which tools? We're not going to be specific on that. You should figure that out for yourself based on what, Cass? I mean, you told me about this the other day.
Well, on what makes you feel good. And it's also very important to remember how the first time you felt when somebody gave you a tool. You know, when you were introduced to the business, how did you feel? You know, what did you like? What tool made you feel comfortable? And then use that tool, because if that's the tool that you feel comfortable with, then that's the tool that you're going to be wanting to use for other people. You'll be comfortable giving that to other people. And that's very important, because then you'll be able to, you know, you're expressing it coming from your heart. And at the end of the day, it's all about heart. That is 100% what it's all about. So no matter what approach you take and no matter what you do, you always remember that the reason why you're going out there to do it is because you're going out there to help somebody. And that is so important. So once you've done that, then you can get past yourself. You're not sort of worrying about yourself anymore. And as long as you are using your tools, because as you can see up to now, all we've done is establish a relationship with somebody. We haven't actually done any presenting whatsoever.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the presenting process here a little bit, and then we're going to start to take some questions here. So if you have questions that are coming up, hit the question button on the webinar there, and we're going to take some questions. One of the things here is you've got to learn the system, and we created this, what we call the online to offline to online system, and we found that we love the internet, you know, and we, of course, came in through the My Mangosteen team. This is the website that we use. There's other good websites out there as well, but this is the one we use. And we started sending people right away to our website because it was Joe's story that Terry watched online that got her excited, right? But we didn't find that people were signing up that well. And so we started mailing out information packets, and boom, people started joining. And so we realized that you want to take everybody that you talk to that agrees to receive more information, and you want to send them to your website, which is online, and it's immediate, and it's 24/7, and then you follow up with some sort of an information packet, a product CD, you know, a newspaper, a business CD if they have a business an interest in the business, and you look for tools that you think would be most appropriate for that person and use the right tool for the job. And so that's our basic system, and, you know, you can go through the 5K in 90 days, the getting started. We'll go through all the different tools. You know, the My Mangosteen back office here, it has business cards, searchable product testimonials, lots of training in that system that provides different kinds of training than becoming a premier. And so this is our basic system that we have created here, which means that everybody goes through this process. If you're smart, you will take every single person through each one of these steps. And I don't know why it is so hard to get people to follow such a simple system, but I can't tell you how many people will not do these steps on this team. People listening on this call will not follow this system, and I don't know why, you know. It's really a puzzle to me. So in other words, everybody that you have an interest goes to your website and gets an information packet, and there should be a CD in there. Then you've got to set up the follow-up call. And there's many different kinds of follow-up. And follow-up, the fortune is made in the follow-up. We're going to do a whole webinar on follow-up. But you've got to follow up on this information. Boy, there's a lot of this stuff that goes out without any follow-up. And then the next step would be, especially with anyone that has questions, would be to get them on a three-way call with your sponsor or your upline, and then bring them on one of these webinars, you know, and then maybe get them to some sort of an event, and then ultimately convention is the ultimate meeting event that you can bring people to. And so this is your goal. You could be checking this off with each person. Have I done this? And you'll find this here will answer most of your questions. If you're not having results with packets going out, it's because you're not following up. If you're not finding people, if you're having trouble signing people up, sometimes it's because you're doing it by yourself. And if you're having trouble duplicating, it's because you're not introducing people to the team here. And sometime you've got to get out to some sort of an event, have your own, or go to a city event, and then ultimately convention. Cass, and this is kind of our basic summary of our whole system here. And I know that you know that people that don't get connected to the team and use these things just seem to struggle.
Absolutely. I mean, being connected to the team is the absolutely most important thing that you can do apart from your activity, and that is what is going to enable you to do the activity. Because when you need to be able to show other people who you're talking to that that you have support, so that if the single most reason why somebody won't do this is because they don't think that they'll be able to do it. They'll think that they won't know how to do it. And they'll think it's too difficult for them. And if they can see that you're actually that you have this amount of support, that you have them from your upline, from conference calls, that you can bring them to a conference call, and that all the work is done for you. All you have to do is put the information in their hands, and that is very, very powerful. Also, the other thing is, of course, is by being connected, you have a collection of testimonials. You have ways in which you can discuss things. I mean, if you don't have your own story yet because you've just begun, then you can use somebody else's story. I mean, for example, there's a comment from the 8-time Olympic gold medal winner, Carl Lewis. He said, "I drink Zango every single day at every meal." I mean, that is, for some people, that would be quite a powerful statement, wouldn't it? Then people might think, well, there's Carl Lewis doing this. Well, I wonder why, I wonder what this is doing. Or you can just say, let me just tell you what happened to my friend. Let me just tell you what happened to my son. This is an amazing product. Let me just let me just tell you what happened to me. And then just tell a very brief story. I was in pain, and or so and so was, and make it a brief story. It doesn't need to be more than just a few seconds, really. Don't overload people with information, but mention something, because very often somebody will say, "Wow, you mean it helps with arthritis, or it helps with migraines, or something like that," and then that, or they'll ask you, well, what else can it help with? And so having that story is very, very important, and you get that story from coming on conference calls and from staying connected, apart from the fact that you get the support and the training and everything else to go with it. Right, Art?
Yes, exactly, Cass. And I'm just looking through some of the questions here because I do want to get some questions going on here. And people are asking questions about, how can I get my people to overcome their fear of approaching people? And I believe that people have fear of approaching people because they're selfish and they're thinking about themselves. What do you think about that, Cass?
Well, yes, partly, and of course, I mean, that when you're new, you don't have that level of certainty yet, and of course, you don't have all the stories. You haven't been to convention. You're new, and so sometimes that's a bit scary. And of course, everybody has different ways of approaching people, as already said. Now, one of the ways that you can do, I mean, that is why the third-party approach is so incredibly valuable, because if you actually say to somebody, I'm really excited. I've started a new business, but I wonder if you can help me, because I'm looking for ways of promoting it, and I'm looking for people who, like, for example, you might say, I think that teachers are. I understand that teachers are really, really good in this business, and I wonder if you've got any advice for me. How would I go about this? How would I find some teachers, do you think? And that's sort of like one of the ways that you can do it, and that's using the third-party approach. The other one is that you can approach somebody with a card or something like that, and you can just say to them, you could say something to me, I'm a new business owner, and I'm looking for people who can help me to promote my business. Do you think you know anybody around here? Or who sells to you? Who are the people who are selling to you? Who are your clients if you're talking to somebody who's in business? And I can tell you one thing, if you go for people who are already in business, if you go for people who already have influence and credibility, it does help a lot, because those are the kind of people who tend to have more of an entrepreneurial nature. And they're more the ones who tend to be more positive about. I'm talking about the business side of things, not about the product side of things, because absolutely everybody needs to know about the product. I mean, you just have to tell people, man, you just have to know about this because it's helped my aunt or it's helped my uncle or it's helped whatever. It's helped me. The product is that one is, and people will either take it or they won't, and that's not your problem. And that's the most important thing to remember. You are the messenger, not the message.
Yeah, exactly, Cass. And you're not going to win them all. And in fact, that's one of the things I like about the Getting Started presentation. There, we talk about making 100 presentations and perhaps having 10 or 20 of that 100 people join, which means 80 or 90 are going to say no. And so you can't get hung up on 1 no or 2 no or 5 no's or 10 no's. And remember that in the industry, we don't accept no's as no's. We accept it as not nows. It took us 4 years or 3 years to get our accountant to sign up. One of the questions we always get is, will the mangosteen help with this condition or that condition? And personally, I think anybody can benefit from an anti-inflammatory, so I don't think we need to get condition-specific here. We're not doctors and we don't have to prescribe. But I'll tell you, there was a searchable mangosteen juice testimonial section in the back office here. And I'll tell you one thing that would be good for everyone listening here is go through and start reading some of these. Not because you need to help somebody with a certain kind of problem, but to read these stories. If you don't get excited reading these stories, if that doesn't boost your confidence reading these stories, well, then not much else will. And so it is a good idea to go in here and look through some of this stuff and see the power in this product so that you're not afraid to get out there and talk to people, Cass.
That's right, absolutely. Also, the other thing is when you're talking to the warm market or somebody who you already have established a relationship, and as I say, it's about like you just said, it's your lawyer. It took you your accountant. It took you how long to
Yeah, 3 years, and he was doing
right.
Our books too.
Yeah, that's it. He was doing your books, well, I suppose. But that's exactly right. I mean, have patience. Lay the foundations, sow the seeds, and then just keep on. As Art said, the follow-up is so incredibly important. Don't bombard people. Just ask them. Say, this might not be the right time for you. It may not be the right time for them, at that particular moment. But in 3 or 4 weeks' time, or maybe a year's time, it will be the right moment for them. And also, people get information. It gets into them bit by bit. And as Zango becomes a household name, then you will have already laid the seeds. You will have already sown the seeds, and people will come back to you as long as you have established a relationship with them.
Right.
As long as they feel comfortable talking to you. If you've antagonized them or gotten annoyed with them or made them feel uncomfortable or something like that, they're going to go to somebody else, or they might not ever even try it. So you need to establish the relationship and build on that relationship, because every stranger that you meet is a future friend, and that's how you have to think about it.
Fantastic, John Cass. Listen, I'm going to stop right here. There's plenty of things that we can talk about, but I want to take in some questions here. So if you've got some questions that relate to getting started, let's try to keep on the topic of getting started and how to build your business and those kinds of things. Please hit the question button on the webinar and go ahead and fire away. I mean, I love this comment from Deborah Mello. She says, my tool is my passion for the product. And that is the greatest tool that you've got. And that's why I like to say, tell your story. Your story is the biggest tool that you have. That is the thing that will get more and more people's interest and attention, your own results. And distill your story down so that it can be given easily. I wonder how many times I have given this story in the last 5 years. Within 10 days, 90% of the pain in my sore, cranky left shoulder was gone, and I was amazed.
Yeah.
And you know what? And that's it. I mean, I could go in for 5 minutes on some of the other benefits that I've seen, but I have distilled an impactful story down into its smallest pieces, if you will. And so I really encourage you to be in touch with your story. And when you don't have your own story, you use another person's story. Let's see. I got another one here. Somebody's asking about, in my mangosteen, when somebody signs up, they go into a holding tank. Yes, they're not placed until you place them. And so that gives you the ability, and I'll tell you the reason that is for. That is so you can place them somewhere in your downline rather than on your first level. And so, I'm not going to get into structure here, but you should be working with your sponsor and your upline 5K and 20K if you have questions about where to place people. That's a decision that needs to be made, to me, every time that somebody comes in. Let me see. What other questions have we got here? Somebody asking what is the importance of a 2-case auto ship, Cass?
Well, the 2-case auto ship, the first importance of the 2-case auto ship is as far as is that you're going to be drinking one for yourself and you're going to have one to share. Because if you don't have something to share with other people, then they're not going to know what a fantastic juice we have. That's number one. Of course, there's also structural reasons for that, which you can talk about with your sponsor. But if you're going to be building this business and you're thinking about building a business, you want to be on a minimum of, you want to be on 2-case auto ship, and you can get as big as you want in Zango and never have to have more than 2 cases. But 2-case auto ship is an absolute must for somebody who's going to be building the business, because unless you're drinking it yourself, you're not going to know what the benefits are or unless you're giving it to somebody who you care about, you're not going to know what the benefits are. But you can't sell from an empty wagon. You can't share it. You can't promote it unless other people can try it. So I would say that would be the main reason for having a 2-case. Is that what you would say, Art?
Yes. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is this is a follow the leader business, and so you have to ask yourself, do you want your people that come in to the business to be on 2 cases or 1 case if you're building this as a business? And not only that, if you want your new people coming in to have extra juice to share, is that what you would like to have? You see, you've got to look at it. What pathway are you laying down for others to follow? And if you start on 1 case, they will start on 1 case. And that's why, you've got to be the leader you want others to follow.
There's also the question about people who have if they start, if they build their organization with 2 cases in the organization, I think at the end of a year, it's 500 times, isn't it? Bigger than
500% more.
500%. Sorry, not 500. 500% more than one that only has 1 case, and they did that with Mexico. In fact, Mexico went absolutely berserk and went for 4 cases, didn't they?
Yes. Another question coming here. I want to keep moving along here, and this is a good one, I think. How much time after you give out Zango material until you follow up, Cass?
You follow up immediately. I mean, what you do is you give them the material. You make an appointment straight away for you always set appointments. As soon as you give them something, you make an appointment with them for them to contact them and say, I really value your opinion on this, or I like, how long will you need to look at this? I mean, how about if I give you a call in 48 hours? You try and get them to move along very quickly so that they can they find out what sort of time scales they have. Obviously, you can't just push something on somebody, but you want to make an appointment straight away. And when you make the appointment, you want to be very specific about the appointment. You want to say, is it better for me to call you in the morning or in the afternoon? If that's it, and then set a time and then tell them specifically, okay, I'm going to call you at this time. I'm sure you're going to have some great questions, and I'm going to, and then you can arrange then to have a 3-way call with them, to have an appointment for a 3-way, or to put them on a conference call or something like that, or merely to answer their questions. But it's best to put them in touch with your upline, with a 3-way call. So the follow-up, and I have used this technique before, Cass, called the Columbo approach, which means that every time at the end of your conversation, one more thing, just before we leave here, and I've agreed to send you to my website, and I'm going to mail you some information. Let's set up a time when we can get back together here. When's a good time for you next week? And that's called the follow-up. Another thing from Brian Keelan here, and I like this one. I've heard this one before. A great book called Going for the Nose by Richard Fenton.
and explains why you should go for the no's instead of the yeses. And I've had this story told to me before about this lady on our team that was in the insurance business, and of course they had this big contest, a quarterly contest, and they wanted to see, who could get the most no's. And so they had the big dinner at the end of the quarter, and they had the person stand up that had documented the most no's in the entire insurance organization, and of course, yes, he was the top income earner.
Right.
Can somebody start in their business for less than $100 a month? Well, to me, sometimes I think people try to get into business when they're not really ready to get into business, and if they don't have enough money to actually get started. But, I mean, it's possible somebody could use 2 bottles and share 2 bottles at their cost, but you have to order at least $100 a month in order to get your commissions. Another person asking about newspaper ads. I haven't had a lot of success with newspaper ads, but I will tell you this. The best kind of newspaper ad seems to be the small ones that go in small, free newspapers. Have you done any newspaper advertising?
Well, one of the things about newspaper ads I want to say is absolutely what you said there is about doing small ads and also, to target small sectors as well in the newspaper ads. And like, for example, you could put in a local in a newspaper that dedicates itself to golfers, for example. You could say play golf as much as you want, or something like that, and you can sort of like talk, sore muscles from playing golf or whatever, and you can put an ad in like that. And you can target, for example, you could target teachers during those long summer holidays, build a or something like that. So I would target it to 2 small sectors of the population, too specific. It is a very costly way of doing it, and actually get a lot more. One of the ways that you can get, you can use other ways of doing it. Like, for example, you could have a questionnaire, and you could just, you can get a lot of information out of people just by having a good questionnaire, just with some basic things, maybe a headline questionnaire or something, and then you can just you can just go out into the street or into an area, the mall as they call it in the States, and you could just be, asking people some questions, and that's a good way of getting a conversation going. And then at the end of it, just say, look, this is a free report. I'll send you a copy of the free report at the end of this, and what's your occupation and your telephone number and all that, and then you send them some information. I mean, that's another way of doing it. And then you've got free leads, and then you know what kind of person you've been talking to. So that is better than going out and putting an advertisement in a newspaper, I think, because it's expensive.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways, and there's nothing wrong with trying different things, especially that are fairly inexpensive. A couple other questions that I want to get through here. Somebody is suggesting how to get someone to commit that keeps asking for more and more information on how to become a distributor, which means, and the number one thing here would be to get that person on a 3-way call, or get them out to an event, or have them, or 3-way them into a webinar. You should always be looking for the next step when you're talking to people, and always looking for the next exposure point. And so if you've got somebody that keeps asking questions, then you keep bringing them to someone else in your upline, or you keep getting them on the next conference call. And eventually, you can drag a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Any comments on that, Cass?
Well, I think that somebody who's always asking for questions and always asking for more information is often an excuse not to do it. But having said that, I would definitely continue to supply the information in one way or another. And, I mean, if you get tired of taking them on the webinars and one thing and another, you can always put them on an email loop, or, you can put them on you can say, look, I'll tell you what, you're not, I can see that you're not quite ready yet. Perhaps this might not be the right time, or you need a little bit more time for reflection, and I'm not here to try and persuade you or anything. How about if I put you on on some information that you'll get on a regular basis, and then you can start to really make up your mind from that, and that'll give you some really fantastic information, and then you put them on your email loop, Art.
Yeah, exactly, Cass. Another question I've got here as somebody as asking, you know, that they've got somebody to a juice party and very interested, and you know, how can you follow up without being too pushy? You know, one of the things I wanted to mention today is look for those buying signals, and it's sometimes as simple as asking, well, listen, why don't we get you some juice? I mean, you can think about this, you can talk about this, but unless you get on this juice, you'll never know what it can do for you, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that you can also follow up. Judy's asking this question with the three-way call that we've just talked about, and I think you can also follow up by getting them on the next webinar that's coming up. But I think sometimes you miss the buying signals. And one of my favorite things when people start asking those buying signals, which are how much is it, where do you get it, where does it come from, how much do you take, those are all buying signals. When you see those buying signals, you know, you basically ask them, would you like to get it retail or wholesale? You know, I can show you how to get it wholesale for $25 a bottle. Where do you want it shipped? I love to use the where do you want it shipped? Let's get you some juice out. Make it simple and easy and fun.
That's it. That's excellent, and also the one of the questions that you can always say is there anything else you need to know before we get started is another way, because if they want to ask any more questions after that, and as you say, well, actually, I can talk to you about this all day long, and we can talk about the merits and the benefits of it, but really the ultimate laboratory is the human body. So why don't you just try some?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take one more question because, gosh, it's going fast. How do you know when to stay in touch or when to let them go, Cass? If you've done the three ways and you've done everything you can to get them involved.
When it starts to become a point of persuasion, and some people say after the third, if you have to call them up 3 times, forget it. But then on the other hand, some people will go back and keep on informing them. So really, what I would do there is I would say to them, obviously this isn't quite the right time for you right at the moment. That's fine. Is it okay if we just keep you informed from time to time? And I mean, that's exactly what I did with one of my top leaders. In fact, here in the UK, I did exactly that. They weren't ready for it at that particular time, and it took a year of doing exactly that, what we call dripping, just giving them information. Always ask permission first, and then just supply them with information on a monthly basis. Just send them little tidbits, something that's come up, or some extra bit of information, and then wait and see what happens, because that can be somebody who comes on. And as I say, I've got one of my top leaders from having that kind of patience. Exactly.
You've got to be patient sometimes. Let me finish off here with a new members checklist. Here's some of the things that you should do, and like I said, most of all the details of what we've been talking today, go back in and watch that Getting Started webinar, okay? We're highlighting some of the highlights. But set your goals and know your why. Treat it like a business. Make sure you order tools. This is the big mistake that I see people make. They kind of tiptoe in here. They haven't really made up their mind whether this is going to be a business. They start talking to people. They don't have any tools, and they haven't really learned very much. And so their little bit of tiptoeing in there of communicating with people isn't very effective. They get frustrated and they quit. So you've got to treat it like a business, be coachable, learn the system, plug into your team, fish from all sides of the boat, the warm, the cold, and the meat market. Remember the law of numbers, and continue to look for new people to talk to. Make a commitment. Gosh, this is $1 million business. Give us a year or 2 years or 5 years of your commitment to change your life. And you've got to be a leader. People are following you. Are you leading them where you want them to go? Lead your downline. Don't follow your downline. And, of course, attend conventions. So thank you a lot, Cass. There's also this great form in the back office. If you're really wanting to go for it, you can this commitment form under the Getting Started tab. And yes, Glimpse just got the news in. We'll be getting prices, and hopefully then at the same time orders on Glimpse within about 2 weeks. So very exciting news. Lots of stuff coming on Glimpse. And also next week, Dr. Toole is getting married. He's going to be taking a couple weeks off, and Dr. Judy Leitz is going to be talking about nutrition and 365 starting next Wednesday, September 3rd. Gary Goslin hosting those, and you all know the times for those ones there. And convention, Cass, I mean, how important is it as we close out here to go to convention. I know you got a big team coming all the way over from UK.
That's right, and you know, is that some people may think that that I can't afford to go to convention. You can't afford not to go to convention. That's as simple as it is. You will learn. Your business will get such a massive boost from going to convention. You just won't believe it. And the credibility that you get from it, the learning that you get from it, it's all compressed into just a few days of incredible. It's like having a huge shot of powerful credibility and all that in your veins all at once. And you meet people. You get to hear stories. It's just absolutely fantastic. Bring somebody with you. So that you've got something to share with. So you have somebody to share it with. Come to convention. Convention is absolutely. If you are building this business, there is no option. You have to come to convention. I mean, do anything you can to come to convention.
Yes, well said, Cass. And there's plenty of time. Listen, guys, it's the end of August. There's plenty of time. Don't just be thinking about you going to convention. That should be a given. But even if it's not, why don't you think in terms of bringing people with you to convention? Are you kidding me? 60 days or so, there's plenty of people that will want to come to convention and will be very, very excited. So I want you to hold in your mind a vision of you going to convention and bringing people with you. And you can't, so don't just think about you going. Think about who can I bring with me, and who can I introduce this to that might like to come, and set the intent. You have to set the intent first before you can expect anything to happen. Thanks a lot, Cass, for coming on. Wow. And Trish, your incredible story that warmed all of our hearts to get the ball rolling. I really appreciate you, Cass, and all of your UK team. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple months.
Thank you, Art. I'm honored, and we're very, very honored to have you as a fantastic. You and Terry as just fantastic team leaders, and the websites that we have, the BecomingAPremier.com website is just it is incredible, and anybody, it'll take a while to explore it, but guys, go out there and really look at that website carefully, and also the My Mangosteen website. You can build your entire business, using that website, but also using the offline tools, as Art says. Just follow the system.
Thanks a lot, Cass. And also, next Saturday, September 6th, we're going to be in Seattle for Super Saturday. Gary Hollister, Dr. Pavina Paulsang is there. We're going to be doing a corporate in the morning, training in the afternoon at the Marriott Hotel, and we are going to have some sampling of Glimpse while we're there. So anybody in the Pacific Northwest, we'll hope to see you next Saturday. Thanks a lot again, Cass. Let's open up the lines so that we can give a real appreciation to Cass and, of course, Trish and her story that warmed our hearts today. Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause, folks.
Thank you.